So now that we finished the rear suspension, other than adjusting it, we need to move on to the front suspension. And of course, pretty much everything's standard in here. Obviously to get to the cones, you got to get the shocks off. I'm also going to be doing ball joints, so I'll be splitting the ball joints and yeah, get the tie rod off, stuff like that. Pretty much just standard fare in here. Like I said, nothing special, just a road car. I will be fitting new bushes to the tie bar, and I'm changing the lower arm out for a adjustable type. So getting the upper and lower ball joints out requires using one of these tools. I found this to be the absolute best one to use to split the joints here. I've tried using the fork tools, they're just a nuisance, but this one always works the best. Now, the way I do this is I tighten it up a little bit, and then I'll usually hit this with a hammer and try to get the joint to release. If it doesn't release right away, I'll tighten it up some more and try again, but generally they pop apart within one hammer hit or two at most. So yeah, this is the best tool to use to do ball joints in my opinion. So once you get the ball joint separated from the upper arm, you need to come around here and knock back this this lock tab. You'll either need a sharp point chisel or a flat chisel, and you just go around and knock the lock washer back away from the nut, so you can get a socket in here to undo this. Now this joint, it is loose. It's not as bad as normal ones I run into, but yeah, this is pretty loose. I typically don't like them this loose because one, you hear noise, and two, they can be much tighter and they'll last a lot longer. So this is just a sign that it's just been wearing out, so it's time to either reshim or replace. And in this situation, we're going to be replacing both the upper and lower joints with brand new kits. So before I can fit those, I need to actually prepare them for fitting. So I'll go on the bench and do the preparation process before I bring them to the car here. So I've got the nut off. I've taken out the internal components of the ball joint itself, just to show you guys, the wear and tear. So as I spin this around, you'll notice there are divots and scratches and polished surfaces. On the bottom here, same thing, just scoring and whatnot. The mating surface to here is this cup. You'll notice it wears in kind of a kidney bean shape. So the ball joint is designed with shims that you can remove to set your tolerances, but if I were to remove those shims and put it back together without doing anything to the ball joint, potentially I could assemble this in a position where it's significantly tighter than it should be because of the wear spots on here and the wear spots in here lining up in a different way than they were when I took it apart, and that can bind the joint and potentially cause damage, or either the nut might work its way off or the suspension will get jammed up. So if I were to reuse this joint, I would need to run all these surfaces against each other with some lapping compound to take away a lot of this wear and tear and return to a smooth surface before I attempt the shimming process. But we're just going to start with the new joint, but I figured I'd show you guys what this looks like. I don't think this joint's ever been taken apart before, so it's nice to see at least it's an original joint that I'm taking off this car, which kind of points to a fairly decent low mileage kind of car. Actually, I retract that previous statement. There was only one thick shim under the ball joint head. Normally there are three, but since there's only one, it means that someone's coming here before me and removed some shims to tighten up these joints. So at least the car did see servicing. I've seen cars that have never had any ball joint service work before, and this one at least has had some. So points to at least some service work happening in its past. So here's the new joint. As you can see, it's all brand new. All the surface coatings are nice and clean. And I just want to point out the surfaces before I do my honing process. So there's the black oxide coating, I guess. There's the inside of the cup there, you can see. So the goal of this process is to make these surfaces as smooth as possible against each other to give me the best running clearances possible. So what I'll do is I will put some valve lapping compound on this surface and this surface, assemble it inside the joint here. And again, I'll put a little compound on there as well. I will then assemble the joint, and I will run a drill on the stud of the ball joint here. And as it's spinning, I will tighten the nut down and walk the joint around through its full range of articulation and motion for, I don't know, 15-20 seconds. And then that should be sufficient to take out any burrs or any mismatches in these two surfaces. Once I've got a nice perfect surface, I'll take it apart, clean the joint very thoroughly, and then pre-grease it and assemble it and knock up the lock tabs. And I'll have to set the clearance with the shims, but I'll do that in the next step. So I've got the lapping compound in the ball joint, as you can see, that grayish coloring there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the drill, and I'm going to slowly tighten the jam nut here as I spin the drill around so that I get all that full articulation, range of motion in the joint, so I have no tight spots. And that's really the key, is to make this joint as smooth running as possible before I do any shimming and tightening it up. So about 20-30 seconds should be sufficient. So let me go ahead and take this apart, clean it off so you guys can see what the surfaces look like. So I've gone ahead and taken it out, and I've given it a bit of a clean off. And as you can see, very nice surface on both of the nut and the socket, as well as the little cap down here. Once again, that's the area the joint rides on the most, so I want to make sure that these two surfaces are, again, perfectly mated to each other. So once I've done this, like I said, I need to give us a thorough clean. And now this is a matched set, so I can't mix this up with any of the other parts, but that's okay because I only do one set at a time. So yeah, I need to wash this out as well, get the little bit of grinding grit out of here. But once I've done that, I can assemble it and then set the shim stack and tighten it up, and then move on to the lower one. So I've gone ahead and smeared grease all over these nice clean joints. I've fitted the new lock tab with the grease fitting. I've gone ahead and greased the cup lightly. So now it's just a matter of putting this all together. And before I tighten it down, I've got to fit some shims. So I've gone ahead and measured the shims that were supplied. There were two 10-thou shims. This is the original 10 that was in there. And then they gave us 3 5-thou shims. So I'll probably start with a 10 and a 5, this combination here, and see if that's sufficient. If not, I'll add more, and if it's too much, I'll take some away. So I've tightened up the nut a bit, and I cannot move this joint, so I need to add another probably 5-thou shim to this stack. So I've fitted the 10-thou shim, so now I have 20-thou in here, and it's still too tight. I can't even move it with a wrench. So I need to add another, I'm going to start with another 5, so it'll be a 25-thou total. Well, added the 5-thou shim, and it's still a bit too tight. I mean, I can move it with the wrench, but just barely. So I'm adding another 5 to this, which will bring the total stack to 30-thou. So with the 30-thou shim, and this not 100% tight, but I can absolutely move this. It moves freely through its entire range, and no tight spots whatsoever. So this is a nicely set up joint. So I'll finish torquing to full spec, knock up the lock tabs, and then we'll move on to the bottom side. So in case you're wondering about these joints, and man, that seems like a lot of work. Yes, it is a lot of work. It takes a lot of time to do. They do sell what's called a maintenance-free or no shim ball joint that's just ready to go. You spend a bunch of money, you bolt them on, and you're done. But in this instance, I wanted to go through the process of doing the shimming, so this is how you do it. So there, lock tab's all done up, and I'm going to pump grease into this joint before I fit the dust cap and put on the nut. And you can see it just oozing out the top there. So I know that the joint is now full, and I can finish filling it with grease once it's all together. So now I need to rotate this to do the opposite side, the bottom side. And for those of you who are working in a garage without a lift, you can simply just take off the caliper, undo the lower ball joint, and just spin the whole hub assembly around and reinsert it into the lower arm so that you're working with the ball joint facing upwards, that is the lower one. And that's what I'm going to do here, just to demonstrate. So I've gone ahead and removed the caliper. So now you can see what I'm saying. Undo the bolt and just flip the joint all the way around. So just like that, I now have the bottom joint facing upwards. And as you can see, it's very loose. So this joint is actually very, very worn, because this is the joint that has the special spring underneath it to keep it tight. So anyway, yeah, just a quick little tip that you can actually flip this hub completely upside down to work at a more comfortable angle on this joint. So here we are, lower ball joint loosened up, and as I said earlier, this is the one with the spring in the bottom here to keep tension. So make sure you get this out when you're cleaning it out, and don't forget to put it back in when you're reassembling. But either way, yeah, I have evidence that someone else has been in here before. There's only, I think, one really thin shim in here. So yeah, someone's definitely at least done ball joint reshimming at least once on this car. But this lower one, like I said, was loose to begin with, so that means that this one's actually really worn out. This feels like a 2 thou shim. That's very thin. The standard shim stack is a 10, 20, and a 5. So 35 thou. Yeah, these are 2 5s. Oh wait, there's a third one. Let's see, what's this one? That might be a 5. Yeah, it might have been 15 thou were the shims. Okay, no more shims. So I'll clean this up, get this off, and we'll do the process over again. So once again, it's a repeat of the top. I need to reassemble this joint with lapping compound, spin it with a drill to clean up the surfaces, clean it, and then grease it. The one trick of the lower one is that you need to assemble the joint without the spring and set your shims, then take it apart, fit the spring, and then put it back together again. Because the spring will actually adjust how it feels. So you'll get the false reading when you're feeling the stiffness of the joint. And we don't want that to happen, because if I did it with the spring, it would translate into road noise. So I don't want that to happen. So yeah, just make sure that you do your shimming first, then take it apart, fit your spring, then put it back together again. So once again, nice smooth surface along the inside of this ball joint. Same thing with the pin. Ready to go with some fresh grease. So here's the lower joint. 20, 10, 5, and a 2 was needed to make this movable. It's just a little looser than I wish it was, but if I take the 2 out, it gets too tight. So I would need like a 1 thou shim or something to make this perfect. But I'm not too worried about it, because I still need to fit this special spring into the bottom of here, which will tighten everything up afterwards. So let me get this fitted, knock up the lock tab, and the lower ball joint is done. So now that we've finished both the upper and lower ball joints on this side, I still need to do the cone, tie bar, and lower arm replacement, this part here. So given the tediousness of doing the ball joints, I like to go to the lower arms and tie rods, because the tie rod disconnects up here, the front subframe, and the lower arm, you can't see it, but right behind here is the attachment bolt for it. So I like to take this apart, do all this work, and then bring it back in before I try to tackle getting the cone out, because the cones can either be easy or extremely difficult, and usually they're extremely difficult most of the time. So I'll save that battle, take a little break, and enjoy this little task before I attempt to do the cones. And just like that, I'm able to remove the lower arm and the tie rod at the same time. Tie rod bushings don't look too bad. I suspect these were changed at least once before. The lower arm is totally blown out, so yet another reason why we're doing this job. I do have adjustable lower arms to fit, so I do need to separate the tie bar from the lower arm here, but otherwise this is yeah, just came apart pretty easily. So I have here the new adjustable lower arm, and I'm just going to coat everything with anti-seize once again before I assemble it. So I did run into a small snag with the lower arm. The bushing center sleeves are stuck on here. Now I managed to get this inner one free, but this outer one is totally stuck, so I'll have to use a torch to get it hot and get this off. I'll probably go to a cherry red, just enough to loosen it up. So I've got the tie bar fitted with the new bushings here, and I've got the new lower adjustable fitted, and I got the new bushings on the attachment bolt there. So now it's just a matter of getting the hub back into the trailing arm here, or lower arm I should say, and then getting the caliper fitted back to the disc. And I'll just leave it there, and at which point I'll go up top in the engine bay and start working on getting this cone uncompressed with the compressor tool. So now that we've done all the suspension work down there, it's time to get access to the cones, and to do that we need to get the upper suspension bolt removed. On this car it's a single bolt, and I'm going to use my impact because these have a tendency to be stuck in place. So let's say a little prayer to the corrosion gods first before attempting to do this. And like I said, I hope the impact is capable of getting this one loose. Otherwise this is going to be a very, very, very long day to get this out of here. Well, I think it worked. Let's see if I can get this out of here. All this injection equipment makes it really difficult to gain access to these bolts. And on the other side over there, it's hidden by a air conditioning evaporator filter unit here. So that'll be a fun one to try to get access to. But yeah, the bolt definitely came out. If I can get out of here. Let's have a look. Yeah. Oh, nice. Sweet. Well, there's hope yet for the rest of this project. And up next, I need to get the cone compressor tool down into that hole, get it interlocked into the cone, compress the cone enough to get the short trumpet out of the suspension before I can try to get the cone out of there. So I've gone ahead and fit the cone compressor with the correct thread for that cone in there. So now I just need to try and compress it enough to get that trumpet out of there. So now that I've withdrawn the cone up into the subframe, I can now attempt to pull out this trumpet, and you can see here the ball is trying to escape from its cup. And it's almost there, so I need to do a couple more turns. Alright, a couple more turns on the compressor. So you can get this out of here. There we go. Got it out. So now the trumpet's out, I can also withdraw this knuckle cup because I have a new one to go in here. And the next and final battle is to see if the cone will come out of the subframe. Oops, I forgot. You gotta take the upper control arm out before you can get that cone out. I was so busy trying to record this that I nearly tried to take the cone out without removing the upper arm. Anyway, there's a bolt here, there's a big nut back here. Once you get the two small bolts off, this will pull the pin out, and then this control arm will be able to be withdrawn outwardly. So now that the arm is out of the way and the pin is out of the way, we can work on getting the cone out of here. And wow, this one came out really nice. And yeah, that thing is really flat. Let me grab the other cone so I can show you what a new one looks like by comparison. So there you go. So this car was riding low. Flat cone. So here's the new cone. I'll get this fitted into the suspension and then secured using the cone compressor, at which point I will then bring the upper arm in. Notice I got the old cup out, so I'll be able to fit a new cup with the trumpet. The trumpet's got a new cup here, and this is a Mini Sport brand Adjust-A-Ride kit. So I've already coated this with anti-seize, and yeah, I'm just Just ready to install the stuff now. So fitting the upper arm back onto the pin kind of needs to be like at this angle in order to get the arm back on. And once you sort of slid it on, gently slide the pin in, and at some point it'll slip into place like that. And then it's just a matter of lining up the hole for the bolt over here with the pin. Well, we're all back together. I did make sure that this boot is fully seated on the knuckle cup before I released the cone, and got the new shock in place as well. So we're all set to go on this side. Last thing to hook up is the steering arm, and of course, because we changed all the suspension, we're gonna have to reset toe once we're all done. But anyway, this side's all good to go, so I'm gonna move over to the other side and start that side. I'm not going to bother showing it unless there's something interesting happening on that side, but it's basically identical to this end. So once I finish that, then I can go ahead and start doing suspension alignment work after I've done a test drive. So I've gone ahead and moved over to the right side, and as you can see, I've already started working on it. I wanted to point out one thing you can tell about the steering rack. So if you can set the arm and it just stays put wherever you set it, that's an indication that the bushings are still good in the inner part of the rack. Same thing front to back. So if you do this and the arm just droops by itself down to the ground, that means the rack needs to be worked on. Also, finger loose ball joints. So, yep, these ball joints needed to be replaced. Anyway, so I'll fix the ball joint problem, top, bottom, and then I'll work on getting the arm and the cone out as well. So once again, nicely finished ball joint top, nice finish on the pin and the cup. So just a matter of greasing all this up and reassembling it, and I'll flip it over. And there we go. The lower one is finished, and this one came out really nice. So just some light pressure, and it swivels smoothly. So on this one, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the cone and deal with the upper arm and the cone, and then I'll go ahead and do the lower arm and tie bar bushings last. And there we go. Got the upper arm out, and got the pin dislodged there, and I've got the cone out. Here's the old cone. So if you're thinking, man, that was impossible, yes, it was very difficult to get this upper arm out because the clutch housing interferes with direct access to the hardware that attaches the pin to the subframe. But it's doable, so if you're trying to do this, keep going, because it is possible.